An Islamic terror attack took place in Cape Town. Here's what happened. For a long time in South Africa, radical Islam and its dangerous ideology has been seeping into society from abroad. While, of course, a lot of the movements that we've seen to date have been very minor and non-violent, it's important for us to understand that, as I've explained on this channel before, that's how things start, but it's not necessarily how they end. When it comes to the infiltration of radical Islam, it's a snowball effect, where yes, seemingly insignificant things will happen at first, but as momentum continues to drive forward, and as people become more radical and aggressive in their rhetoric, something incredibly dangerous can happen. And in Cape Town, this is already the case. Now, before I get into this explosive investigation and what actually occurred in Cape Town, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? It's completely free to do, and all you've got to do is click on the subscribe button below the video. Now let's get started. So it's important that we clarify that this specific incident happened in late 2024. It's not something recent, and thank God nobody was actually hurt. However, a new investigation has come out with some incredibly important findings in recent days, just this week, in fact. And so it's really important that we go through the details of the investigation, because this is something that needs to be taken with the utmost seriousness. So as explained here by the SA Jewish Report, there was an undetonated Cape Town bomb, which is 100% a terrorist attack. So an Israeli anti-terrorism organization has confirmed that the attempted attack on the Cape Town Jewish Community Office building in December 2024 was undoubtedly an act of terror conducted by Islamic extremists. The Israel Law Center, known as Shurat HaDin, conducted an independent forensic investigation into the attempted bombing that took place a year and a half ago. Shurat HaDin is at the forefront of fighting terrorism and safeguarding Jewish rights worldwide using the law. The organization's president, Nitzana Darshan-Leitner, told the SA Jewish Report this week that the 2-kilogram improvised explosive device, otherwise known as an IED, was thrown into the Jewish center, and it contained very real and very powerful explosives. While the device failed to detonate, Darshan-Leitner confirms it was an attempted terrorist attack. 100% their intent was to bomb this Jewish community location. They wanted to kill individuals and destroy Jewish property. It was an attempted act of mass murder. Fortunately, it failed. Shurat HaDin investigators were able to trace the movement of a small group of perpetrators, says Darshan-Leitner. They documented their movements and surveillance, their placing of the explosive device, and their fleeing the scene of the crime. The findings were based upon advanced technological mapping. She says the individuals involved are Islamic extremists radicalized against the Jewish community and Israel. They decided that they will personally take revenge, in quotation marks, and try to kill South African Jews and destroy Jewish property to express their hate and anger over the events in the Middle East. They are extremely dangerous, fanatical, and determined, she says. Darshan-Leitner says individuals in the Israeli government informed Shurat HaDin about the attempted bombing. Shurat HaDin conducted its work on the matter after a Jewish businessman said he wanted to carry out a private investigation. Based in Tel Aviv, Shurat HaDin works with Western intelligence agencies, law enforcement branches, and a network of volunteer lawyers to combat anti-Semitism, extremist hate, and delegitimization, as well as to defend the diaspora Jewish community from violence. Back in South Africa, the investigation was handed over to the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, which most of us will know as the Hawks, soon after the attack. But there have been no public updates on the Hawks investigation. About 6 weeks after the attempted attack, Chief Rabbi Dr. Warren Goldstein announced that he was inviting a counter-terrorism task force to assist with the investigation and to make recommendations to protect places of worship, schools, and community centers. Now, it is important for us to note here that Darshan Leitner says that the South African Police Service acknowledged receiving the report initially, but has not responded since. They are ghosting us, and from our vantage point, they are ignoring the evidence and information provided to them, says Darshan Leitner. They are on notice about who carried out this terrorist attack. She says Shurat HaDin is actively trying to follow up and ensure the SAPS doesn't ignore the report. We will not allow this to be buried because it's not politically convenient to investigate, ascertain the information provided, and make arrests. And I just want to highlight here that Shurat HaDin has made a very important request from the public. It says here that Shurat HaDin is also asking organizations and officials in South Africa and abroad to inquire about the status of the investigation in Cape Town. We contend that there are dangerous Islamic terrorists still pursuing attacks on the Jewish community and no one is acting. Now, I really need for us to highlight the issue with SAPS and their inactivity, because this is something that I spoke about in a previous video a few days ago, specifically the Belito bomb. Now, of course, much like this incident, that bomb also failed to go off. However, what's important for us to note there is that SAPS yet again failed to act. We saw how it was the FBI who alerted the Hawks as to the incident that was going to take place, and SAPS not only failed to make an arrest of the perpetrator, but actually handed the IED back to his mother, which is an incredibly bizarre thing to do. And so yet again, SAPS is proving to be inactive, inefficient, and showing no care for the situation and for the lives that are at risk. And this is incredibly important for us to note here, because we're seeing a pattern emerging whereby South African police just seem to be completely uninterested in actually attending to these problems. Because let's also not forget, yes, this is a targeted attack at the Jewish community by radical Islamists. But the Belito bomb blast was not something that was targeted at Jews, and it was not conducted by Islamists. It was simply a very upset and troubled high school student. And so ultimately, these kinds of events can affect anybody of any background. This is something that needs to be taken incredibly seriously and is just not being taken seriously by the local police. There's also then another incident, which of course was the arrival of the flights of Gazans into South Africa. And again, we saw how border management did not go through the correct sort of security screening for these people. They didn't even know these people were going to arrive in the country. And then even though they said, oh, we took a look at them and it doesn't seem like any of them are going to be asylum seekers and that they will just go on to other locations, News 24 reported a few weeks later that over 100 of them were granted refugee status in South Africa. And so therefore, have stayed in the country. And so ultimately we're seeing an incredibly problematic situation arise. We're seeing that radical Islam has not only sowed its seeds in South Africa, but it has already started to act. There are activists on the ground who are looking to commit acts of violence against people, particularly in Cape Town. In fact, there was another video I'd like to refer to, the link to which is right above me at the top of the screen. And that is that we've seen how Islamists are looking to import Pakistanis into South Africa to basically arm themselves and be strong against Jews. In fact, this specific incident was caught on video, and the person who uttered these words was Imran Musa, who is a politician, a member of the Al-Jamaa political party. And so this is an incredibly worrying thing. And of course, we've seen how there have been many vicious anti-Israel protests in Cape Town. We've also seen how Cape Union Market has been attacked. We've also seen in that same video that I showed how runners at the Cape Town Marathon were intimidated, how Israelis and people who support Israel have been intimidated. And of course, we saw an incident where a man at a restaurant was being harassed by a group of pro-Palestine protesters due to his beliefs. And so ultimately, we're seeing an incredibly dangerous thing festering within Cape Town. the mayor and the DA who run the place are doing absolutely nothing to address this, and in fact seem determined to appease the Islamists rather than condemn them. And this makes for a very dangerous situation. Before we end off this video, there is something else that I wanted to mention. You see, many people might look at Shurat HaDin and think, okay, it's this pro-Israel organization, they're just another political group or NGO, not much to see here. But I just want to give everybody this important clarification. Shurat HaDin is not some silly political party in South Africa that's just airing their concerns. They are an incredibly serious and professional law center which takes on cases of the utmost severity. We're talking about litigation that involves millions of dollars. And here's just one of those cases so that you can see just how serious they are. So you can head to Shurat HaDin's website where they have their entire track record on display for the public. And here is one of their biggest cases to date. They explain how Shurat HaDin received a historic ruling against the PA, so the Palestinian Authority, and PLO. Shurat HaDin filed this case on behalf of over 150 plaintiffs in 2000. The claim stated that the attacks and bombings during the Second Intifada in Israel were not a spontaneous uprising by Palestinians, but instead planned attacks calculated to force Israel to concede to issues Palestinians could not win through negotiations. The Jerusalem District Court found that the now deceased Yasser Arafat and his terrorist underlings directed and financed the 17 attacks committed by the martyrs of Al-Aqsa, Hamas, the PLO, and Islamic Jihad. After more than 19 years, tens of thousands of documents, and more than 100 court appearances, justice was finally served. The PLO and its terror partners' complicity in the attacks were finally exposed. So as you can see, Shurat HaDin is an incredibly serious and professional, world-class law center. They are not playing around here. And the hawks, the saps, and anybody in South Africa's national security establishment need to pay attention. For any of you who are concerned and want to ensure that people know about this, please remember to share this video, like it, comment, share it with your friends, and approach whatever political representatives you have in your area, because this is an important issue that might affect one community today, but could affect countless others tomorrow. And we need to ensure that South Africa's security is safeguarded. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you found it informative, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.